lot of news today, or rumors at least.
Why are you guys talking about DK Metcalf?
There's some fun stuff to talk about. Is that a thing that was actually said?
No, I don't know. I was just kidding. I thought it would be funny if the show were on the air for 14 seconds and someone screamed, "Why aren't you talking about DK Metcalf?"
Okay, why aren't we?
I chose to be
I thought
that
you
person.
said, why are we?
No,
there's a possibility. It would be the kind of thing I would say sometimes when free agency and stuff is starting to happen, and then maybe somebody calls in with like a very wild idea that I think is such a remote possibility that I might say, we really don't need to be talking about this.
Yeah.
But DK Metcalf would, I don't think, have qualified for that. Mostly, we did get some calls on him, like in the last month. We have gotten some.
Yeah.
I think any trade is, unlikely. Like any idea you have is less than 50-50 to happen. But the reason for me on Metcalf that I would be that way is I just don't see the Bills wanting to bet big at receiver, but I don't have to be right. Like we've kind of all wanted them to for years.
Right.
And they really haven't. And they could still use this player. They could still use, a wide receiver.
Yes, they could. Yeah. Well, but you're in the room with me, so for anyone who might have heard it wrong, I guess I didn't enunciate. I rushed it. Why aren't you talking about DK Metcalf? It was what I meant to scream there. So anyway. Yeah, no, I know. The first thought I had, it's
it probably is what you said.
It's definitely what I said, but it might have not come out very cleanly, which is thus the confusion and the clarification. But nonetheless, anyways, first thought I have is similar to that, right? I need Myles Garrett more than I need DK Metcalf. Of course, like that is less than 50-50 to happen as well, and maybe even worse than that, and certainly not in a time frame that you might be able to live with. So, you can put that over there. You can forget about a lot has happened today. You can forget about Max Crosby. There's been a new commitment. He's the new highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football, signing an extension with the Raiders. So that's done. And so, but
are you sure?
I think so. I don't expect this to be a sign and trade, but I mean, I guess anything could happen.
They're pretty proud of themselves.
But my first thought is prioritize. If I'm making a big trade and signing a guy to a big extension, I'm prioritizing defensive line or defensive end, Myles Garrett. But doesn't matter how much I want to prioritize that, or even Brandon Beane wants to prioritize that. It might not be available to you until the summer, if ever. So, but then I'm still, the Bills had the MVP. They were second in the league in scoring. They set a franchise record for points. How many more points are they going to score if they pay DK Metcalf $30 million a year to be on their team?
Wouldn't you love to know?
That's a jerky way to look at it because it ignores the impact he could have. Just, you don't necessarily need to score more points. It's, how you score them and how quickly you can score them and in what games you score them, i.e. against the Chiefs in the playoffs, I guess. Anyway, so I'm sort of lukewarm about it. It's a big commitment. Then you start looking at highlights.
Oh my gosh, he's the king.
Your head just starts to explode. Okay, I get it.
I'm in.
I mean, I know. I knew this before I watched it again. I've watched him play football. I can recall watching him play football recently. I know what a freak show he is, but seeing it again, and just like, okay, well. All I'm saying is it does not take me a long time at all to get talked into this being the best idea of all time.
We got to talk about price, and if we're going to start at a point where we think it's realistic enough, which we are, I think that's what we've learned here, what it costs and everything else. He is a memorable draft prospect for me. 6 years ago, this is now. So 2019, right out of the combine, right? We're just out of the combine. And remember Metcalf, who, the highlights then, the look at him, right? Like this guy looks like he could be incredible.
I remember saying on the air, regrettably, I think he's too jacked up.
Well, I mean, he's
too
big, impressive to look at. But then he went to the combine and he had that 3-cone debacle.
He fell or slipped or
just
something.
And he was kind of polarizing from there, if not before that. And he ends up going, what, third round, second round?
Last pick of the second round, I think, is where he got chosen.
Pick 64.
Yeah. So, I mean, he certainly has he's outkicked that draft status without any question.
Yes, but he's not a perfect player. He looks like maybe he should be. But I don't think he's a perfect player. We were talking about him on ADP Chasing on Monday, my podcast, with Pat Crane and Davis Maddock. And Davis said something about, right at the end of the show, we got to Metcalf. And he said something about, Metcalf is a guy, I'm not sure if we were talking about Green Bay. I think it was about Green Bay. Like, that was one rumor, maybe the rumor. And, like, Metcalf being a guy that, goal to go or whatever, just like he is the go-to guy in your offense. And I said something like, but he really almost never really was that for Seattle. Like, just it's a subjective thing. But he has not been somebody that, like, okay, the ball's going to him. Like, somebody that just takes over games. It's happened a few times, but he's not on the top level. And, that doesn't mean he's not good enough for the Bills necessarily, but he's not on the top level. He's somebody that athletically blows your mind. But I want to, dig into some of his numbers and see, just like, I probably should know already, but how many, like, top games he's had. He's had some. He's an interesting idea. And it sounds like he's available, which is not obvious about Garrett.
Right.
You don't know if you can even get him. Metcalf is somebody that you could probably get.
Right. When the Seahawks people, is it still John Schneider, talked about him, I think even earlier, maybe late last week, because it's only Wednesday, so I don't know about earlier this week. But I feel like in the last few days, they were, talking maybe at the combine, whatever, like everybody does take their turns. And they were asked about, I don't have the quote here, but it's sort of like, he's on our team. It was not defiant. It was, there had not been a trade request by that point. But the reporting I think we're seeing is it not right that they're letting him go look, which is something that the Browns are not doing with Garrett at all yet. Like, they are defiantly saying this is not happening, and the Seahawks are kind of like, hey, go see what you can find out there, and if we like it, then maybe we'll figure something out for you. So that makes it more realistic in this time frame, the time frame you'd like to be working on in the offseason, as opposed to waiting until the summer to see if someone is going to shake free. And that's a risky bet to make. Like, if you're waiting on the sidelines to see if Myles Garrett's going to shake free in July sometime, I mean, that's a hell